Welcome into the Week 1 Tackle Prop Show here on Daily Fantasy Statement Games. I'm your host, Johnny. I have 5 tackle props for you this week in Week 1 of the NFL season. So let's get right into it. So first, I'll introduce what I'm doing here is I'm picking. It's not always going to be 5. I'm going to try to get as many out that I'm comfortable with. The most important word I'll throw out there is bankability. I like these 5 tackle props because I think they're bankable bets. First and foremost, this is Week 1 of the NFL season. We don't know teams' identities yet. We're not sure on snap percentages. So I took all that in consideration, and I do think that with that being said, these are 5 at least pretty bankable bets. They're guys that we expect to be out there. Anything can change. You can't predict the NFL, especially in Week 1. So I'll get right into it here. The first bankable bet I like is Mack Wilson. Mack Wilson, linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. I expect him to get his over. I expect him to hit the over. And his line is at 4.5 combined tackles. I expect him to get 5 or more. That line is set at minus 153. So very high odds here. But I'm not a fan of, season-long production. Probably not a name that I expect to be mentioning in Week 8 or Week 10. I do think the other linebackers there will step up. But as it is right now, they really haven't had much time there. Mack Wilson has familiarity with Arizona's system. He is considered to be the green dot signal caller. So Mack Wilson in Week 1 is a pretty safe bet to lead the team in not only snap percentages, but tackles as well. And I think this 4.5 line is pretty low. I think this is a modest expectation. If it jumps up to 5.5, I'm probably not looking at it the same way. Obviously, the odds will get lower, better for you. But as it is right now, I think this is a bankable bet. Again, Arizona's linebacker room is a question. We might see Akeem Davis-Gaither next to Mack Wilson. We might see Cody Simon. Not sure at what pace, but again, Mack Wilson is supposedly the middle linebacker there, and he actually is pretty productive in 2024 with only 75% of snaps. And what I mean by that productive, he has hit this mark. So he has had 5 or more combined tackles in half of his games in 2024. And again, that was only at 75% of snaps. As the LB2, Kaiser White was there, and he was more the full-time role. And, Mack Wilson was a kind of a rotation part-time player at that point. But I'm expecting now with this green dot news for him to be at least it's sitting at about 80 to 85% of snaps. It's not a great matchup. He's got the Saints. Of course, this is not a huge spread difference. Arizona's favored by 6.5 points, so we do expect Arizona to be the favorite and win. But at the same time, Saints ran the 21st fewest. They had the 21st fewest rushing attempts in 2024, but that was a different offense. They had Derek Carr threw the ball deep, and now they have Spencer Rattler. I'm not expecting as much deep play out of the quarterbacks, the offense there, and maybe they try to shorten the passes up for Spencer Rattler to start it off, and that would be a good thing for Mack Wilson. Help get those tackles closer to the line of scrimmage versus down the field where it's a little bit, tough for him to do that. Again, no Derek Carr. I expect, the snaps will be there. The production looked like it was there in limited sample size last year. So Mack Wilson, probably not a guy that is going to be, 140, 50 tackles by the end of the season. But for right now in Week 1, he's the green dot linebacker, and that counts a hell of a lot. Mack Wilson was my first at over 4.5 combined tackles, minus 153. Moving on to my second play, and that is Zach Baun over 2.5 assisted tackles, minus 139 is the line. He, of course, plays Thursday Night Football, the first game of the season, and I'm pretty confident about Zach Baun to get his 3 assisted tackles or more. He's hit 3 or more assisted tackles last year in his big breakout season, 12 out of 16 games, which is 75%. That's very likely. That's a good number for all you bettors out there. He had 2 games versus the Dallas Cowboys in 2024. The stats would show you, the box score would show you that, be a little bit about worried about that matchup. In those 2 games, he only had 4 assists, so that's an average of 2. The average is under this line, but those were games where Dak Prescott was not at the helm. He was not the quarterback. They had Cooper Rush there. Don't believe Cooper Rush had over 20 completions. It was tough to sustain drives on that offense. So I think with a healthy Dak Prescott, that's going to help Zach Baun's chances here a lot. And anytime you hear the name Zach Baun, it's synonymous with tackles, at least in 2024, and I expect that to be the same. And also, Nakobe Dean is not starting right now. Nakobe Dean, I think, is somebody who might garner more tackles away from Zach Baun, and he still had, a buku amount of tackles last year. But right now they're starting Jihad Campbell. Is going to be at least the starter next to Zach Baun. And I expect, Zach Baun to be the breadwinner as far as tackles there by a larger margin than if Nakobe Dean was there. I do expect Philadelphia to win this game. And that's not really, the best recipe. You want the team that's going to lose, because then the winning team's going to run it down their throat, or at least run more, and that would favor the tackles. But nonetheless, this should be a close game. It's a divisional game, and Dak's healthy. The offense is looking a little bit better getting a healthy Dak Prescott, George Pickens and company. Maybe they can sustain drives a little bit longer, and I think that's all it needs to be, is a close game here for Zach Baun to get this 3 or more assisted tackles. Once again, the line is at minus 139 there. Moving on to my third pick, and that's Micah McFadden from the New York Giants. I'm projecting him to hit his over on the 3.5 solo line, and that the odds there are at minus 137. So just a little bit lower than Zach Baun's odds. But first and foremost, man, with this, first thing I'll say about McFadden is I love the matchup versus Washington. I expect Washington to not only be up in this game, but to be on the field, ample majority. And I think Washington is not only going to be up in this game, but they're still figuring out their backfield. I think they, especially once they get a lead, or if they get a lead, I think they're going to try to, right off the jump as well, figure out what they have, with Rodriguez Jr., Eckler, Jakrowski Merritt. So I expect them to be excited about running the ball, and I think this is a good week one matchup for them to find out where their running back room stands. I know that, the Giants have a pretty stout defense, and, Micah McFadden probably being their best run defender is a big part of that. If we look back to 2024, 3.5 or more solos, he hit that. McFadden hit that in 11 out of 13 games when he played over 85%. So 13 games he played 85% or more snaps, and he hit 4 or more solo tackles 11 times in those games. So great odds there. If that's a test, you're getting a high B or almost an A at that point. So very likely, or at least last year was. The stats will tell you that. I expect 85% or more snaps right off the jump this year. Bobby Okereke may not be healthy as he was coming into the last year. He actually had I believe it was a back injury that, who knows if they held him out of the preseason. They didn't give him his snaps, the starter snaps. I'm not sure if that's saving him, putting him in bubble wrap, or there's actually more toward the story. But nonetheless, Micah McFadden, this is a very attainable line for him, and I think that I know he's playing for a contract. The fans there in New York love him. I think the coaches like him too. He's playing for that extension, so as long as he's out there for that 85%, again, nothing's certain. But they really don't have many other options, especially if Bobby Okereke is they're starting off slow with him. So really like this line of Micah McFadden. Started the season off hot last year with 13 tackles in week 1 and had over 4 solo tackles. So Micah McFadden, I look for him to get hot and start hot once again. Moving to my fourth prop that I like is Christian Rozeboom, and I like him to go over his line at 7.5 combined tackles. The line is set at minus 114. He's hit this in 11 out of 16 games, astoundingly, versus the Rams last year. And the crazy part is that was only on 74% of snaps as a whole on the season. But the last 9 games, the snaps actually rose. Christian Rozeboom, not only did the snaps rise, but the production did too. And he hit this 8 or more combined tackles in 7 out of those last 9 games. Likely that Jacksonville is going to be up and running in this one. Just like Washington, I think they want to prioritize the run. Obviously, we know they have Brian Thomas. They have, the Travis Hunter, a couple of Brenton Strange, good passing offense. We expect Trevor Lawrence to take a step forward. But I do think they're up enough in this game where they can kind of just run the ball majority of time, and especially in the second half, and see what they have in Bigsby at the end. Find out the pecking order, and that's going to work out for Christian Rozeboom. We see the number one linebacker there in Carolina get great usage, 95 to 100% of snaps, and that's Christian Rozeboom's spot now. So I expect him to be the breadwinner as far as tackles for the Panthers this week in Week 1 and majority of the season. So I think Christian Rozeboom anytime could rack up 10, 11 tackles. It might just be this week, and all you need is 8. So I think he's a great bet for that. Moving on to my last pick at minus 110, and that is Tyler Nubin to hit over his mark at 4.5 solo tackles. So again, this is not a combined, this is a solo tackle, but actually for a defensive back, this is quite a high line, but I'm very confident in Nubin. Not only the snaps he was getting last year, he played 99.8% of snaps in the first 12 games, and then the 13th game he got hurt. So he only played 55%, but I believe it was every down until he was out. And then he had an ankle injury after week 13, halfway through the game. That was the end for Tyler Nubin. But again, 99.8% of snaps. That's a big thing is, how bankable are you if you cannot be on the field almost, every down roll. And that is Tyler Nubin's, to his benefit here. He is a full-time player. They bring in Javon Holland, who's a fine free safety, and that's great. Let him be back in the back, and let's get Nubin up in the box. And I think this is a great matchup versus Washington for Nubin to hit this 5 or more solo tackles. In weeks 10 through 12, and why I'm highlighting those 3 is not only because they were 3 12 tackle games in a row, but this is kind of when we saw the rookie kind of get comfortable in the production kind of really take an uptick. In those 3 games, he had 36 tackles, 18 of them, half of them were solos. So in those 3 games, he had an average of 6 solo tackles per game. And actually in week 13, for good measure, he played 55% of snaps before he sustained that ankle injury, and eventually that was it for him for the season. But just at 55% of the snaps, he had 4 solos. So we could have been looking at 4 games with double-digit tackles, which is a great. Anytime you're putting up double-digit tackles, there's a great chance that, especially when you're in the box, that 4 or more of them, in this case 5 or more of them, half of them will be solo tackles. Don't think it's, like I said, it's a tough spot for a defensive back, but we get great odds here at minus 110. And Tyler Nubin, I think if he would not have gotten hurt, we would have seen 8-10 tackle games on the regular for those last 4 or 5 weeks. So again, one thing, just like I mentioned with McFadden, is maybe Bobby Okereke. I wouldn't call it bad news, but maybe the fact that he's kind of a question mark right now. We don't know his health situation. We don't know what kind of snaps he's going to get. I think that actually helps Okereke. He's going to be closer to the box. The team's going to need more support in the run game, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. His role is going to be in this game. I don't think it's going to be all hands on deck as far as in the backfield. I think it's Javon Holland again. Let him be deep. Get our boy Nubin up to the line of scrimmage, and I think that he's going to help address the run game, which he can do very well. So Tyler Nubin here is my last play. Again, I'll read them off. The first one was Mack Wilson over 4.5 combined tackles at minus 153. Number 2 would be Zach Baun over 2.5 assisted tackles at minus 139. 3 is Micah McFadden over 3.5 solo tackles, minus 137. 4, Christian Rozeboom over 7.5 combined tackles at minus 114. And finally, Tyler Nubin at 5 over 4.5 solo tackles, minus 110. So that was week 1 for my tackle prop show. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have comments, questions. I'm not saying you should put all these 5 picks in a parlay. Stay in your body about it. Whatever you do, if you like to make little parlays, 3-4 leg parlays, take one of these if you like it and throw it in there. Maybe use it as a single. I do think they're bankable bets, and that's what I'm trying to do here on the show is put out bankable bets. I'm not trying, a majority of my picks will not be plus odds. They're going to be higher odds, but that's okay. You take what we're going to try to play safe out here. I'm trying to give you options to choose. Maybe I made a case for one of the players, and you really like that. You agree with that. So take that and run with it. So however you want to play it. Again, if you have questions, comments, leave them in the comments below, and I'll get back to those. And I hope to see you in week 2, same time, same place. Best of luck in bets this week, and best of luck in fantasy football, and enjoy week 1 of the NFL season. Until next time.